Good morning, friends. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship from Franklin and the mountains of western North Carolina and northeast Georgia. Let us acknowledge that we walk upon the traditional territory of the Cherokee, a proud, intelligent, and highly spiritual people with democratic values, a deep respect for the land, and a strong belief in balance in all aspects of life. My name is Mary Teslow, and I'm pleased to be your service leader today. I am joined this morning by our Zoom stage manager, Annette Watlington, our music coordinator, Jude Lowry, and Warren Riley and Bruce Bransma in the sanctuary. The Zoom chat box is available for announcements. Those who prefer to focus on the service can close it now and catch up later. Our church-related announcements, our Christmas Gathering of Friends service is scheduled for December 19th. If you would like to participate with a reading, music, or more, please be in touch with Marge Abel. Our opportunity to participate with Union Academy for gift giving this holiday season. Our fellowship has an opportunity to bring holiday cheer to the students and staff of Union Academy, a Macon County public school for students in 7th through 12th grade who find success in an alternative learning environment. The school's motto of RISE is to embody respect, integrity, success, and empathy by a caring staff committed to helping students. They have 3 programs we can participate in. First, donating gently used or new clothing to a closet in the school where students can get items they need. Warm clothing such as sweaters, jackets, gloves, socks, etc. for students aged 13 to 18 are suggested. Assembling goodie bags at our fellowship on Thursday, this Thursday, December 2nd at 11:30, that will be distributed by school staff in an assembly on Friday the 3rd. You can make brownies, donate monies, or come and help put the packs together. Being a holiday angel to one or more children for Christmas. If you're interested in participating in any or all of these programs, please contact Olga Pater. Please identify yourself if a voice message answers. As we remain distanced in the season of giving, here is a worthy and easy to do opportunity to share cheer and kindness in our community as we UUs are committed to practice. All hands are welcome to join in this act of giving and caring. Both of these announcements will appear again in this week's UU View with the phone numbers. Annette, do we have any other announcements?
Any announcements? Please feel free to unmute and make your announcements. Otherwise, Mary,
Bruce, can you hear her? Does she have any? Can
yeah,
we hear her?
I don't know why. I think I'm unmuted. I think everybody on Zoom can hear me. Yeah, Zoom can hear me. If y'all have announcements, please unmute and make your announcement.
Does anybody have their hand up?
Okay, we're all groovy.
So it looks like we don't have any other announcements at the moment. Our fellowship is a light for liberal religion in the mountains that values diversity and the richness it brings to our community. Our celebration of diversity is reflected in the variety of our Sunday services. Today we welcome our own Paul Chu and his cat Gypsy with a message titled Living the Good Life. We hope today's service enriches your journey. Our opening words are from Rob Hopkins and the Transition Handbook from Oil Dependency to Local Resilience, 2008-2009. Our culture is underpinned by various stories and cultural myths that we all take for granted. That the future will be wealthier than the present, that economic growth can continue indefinitely, that we have become such an individualistic society that any common goals are unthinkable, that possessions can make you happy, and that economic globalization is an inevitable process to which we all have given our consent. Our work is to challenge these stories and myths and plot a new course for the world, and Paul might add, transform ourselves in the process. Our chalice lighting this morning A flame that starts with one tiny spark, which can spread so quickly, reminds us that good ideas, such as love and justice for the earth and her people, can spread quickly too. Chalice Flame of Light, ignite both compassion and commitment in our hearts today. Our opening hymn, Spirit of Life, number 123.
There isn't any sound, Jude. Sing in your mind.
It would seem we're having a little bit of problem with our sound this morning. I don't know. I'm not doing really anything different. So I'm not sure how to resolve that, but hopefully
you,
our
Jude.
next song will play.
Our offering words are adapted from Kayla Parker. We know the contributions of time, talent, and treasure to our congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for every gift and commit together to ensure the funds and efforts we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than we could have done alone. What we invest in as a country, state, community, fellowship, and individuals matters. Our offering song this morning is Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell. Thank you, Jude. Gifts given in love and hope continue a cycle of love and hope. To introduce Paul and Gypsy to you, Paul tells me he has difficulty describing himself because he seems to change every day. There are, however, some constants in his life. Gypsy, the philosophical cat, the garden he tends to, and the ever-changing list of projects he attempts to do. In his former life, Paul was an industrial arts and technology education teacher, but now he believes he can only teach oneself, not others. He remembers former partnerships or marriages he's had, but says he often has trouble keeping them all straight. Which one came first? Which one second? Then he met Gypsy at a local business on 441. He describes it as the typical, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, and you look like you need a place to live." When he went to pet Gypsy, she leaped up and met his hand halfway. While this was certainly a case of love at first sight, it has grown into a relationship with great respect growing out of trust between them. That is not to say they haven't had their disagreements, Paul points out, but we are still friends, and that is what the point is. The other constant in his life is the garden he tends to. It is a 1/4 acre of raised beds in the middle of thousands of acres of forest, surrounded by a fence to keep out the deer, though surely they could jump over it. Paul says it is a constant battle to keep the critters happy, requiring mass amounts of compost. He no longer digs in his garden, but lets the critters do the work. At times, the earthworms literally leap out of the ground when they are hungry. It's amazing to see. With his hydro-powered, battery-operated leaf blower in hand, he blows leaves to the side of a mile of dirt road in what he calls the Great Leaf Roundup. He takes his organically raised produce to the local Franklin Farmers Market, where they are appreciated, especially his super salad mix. For him, living and working on his farm is more than a way of life. It is more about a way of life than a job. Paul and Gypsy have recently moved from his off-the-grid farm to a house nearby due to some health concerns. On his farm, he's been building an earth-bermed house with a living roof, solar panels, and radiant floor heating for the past 3 years, but admits that the building process has slowed recently, due in part to working on his new house where they live, including insulating and installing a new standing seam roof and having solar panels installed. It was a big job that he feels is well worth the effort. Some friends and visitors to the power for the house, but also charge all his all-electric Nissan Leaf that gets him around. On his farm, he has also adopted all-electric battery-powered tools on his farm, including carts, a mower, weed eater, chainsaw, and leaf blowers, all charged by hydropower. He hopes to get working on his house this winter. Meanwhile, his garden keeps him busy, where he grows year-round under protective row cover when it gets too cold. Paul and Gypsy have published over 25 conversations together, which have found their way around the world. And now, Paul, please come up and.
Thank you, Mary.
Paul, I see you have on Gypsy's President for 2020 t-shirt.
Yes, she's in spirit here today. She doesn't like driving in cars, and she says I drive like a bat out of hell.
Oh my goodness, better that she's safe, I would say. Were you disappointed when she didn't win?
Absolutely not. I was elated. I didn't want to be separated from her.
Yeah, she'd have to move to Washington, yeah.
Right.
I was wondering, did she run as a Democrat, Republican, or independent?
She actually ran as a fundamentalist.
Oh my goodness, doesn't that have religious connotations?
Well, her campaign was a catalyst for real or fundamental change. And as you will hear from Gypsy, change and mindfulness daily.
I have some of those practices too. I'm guessing that is what your talk will be about today.
Something like that. Gypsy will share some of her wisdom with us today from our conversations. And I appreciate that you're willing to do her part today.
Absolutely. We've had our challenges lately, including the pandemic, so maybe that is something the fellowship can work on, reestablishing some of our commitment to the environment. Today we know they go hand in hand.
Yes, we know that climate change is displacing folks off their lands because they can no longer survive.
Today we might refer to this as environmental justice.
And we recognize that many immigrants are now climate refugees.
Talk.
It's good to be here today in this space, in this beautiful building that was really a gift from our founders, and it became Green Sanctuary under UUA. I often miss Sunday service because of my garden, or at least that's my excuse. I'm much more comfortable in my garden than I am up here at the podium. But I'll try to do my best and also share some of the wonder. The title for this talk, Living the Good Life, comes from a book by Scott and Helen Nearing, first published in 1953. Scott was blacklisted from teaching during the McCarthy years, and Helen, his wife, was tired of working factory jobs, so they bought a rundown farm in Vermont. Not long after that, they self-published their book, Living the Good Life, How to Live Sanely and Simply in a Troubled World. Remember, this is back in 1953. And it was a guide to more self-sufficient living. By the 70s, Living the Good Life had become the Bible for the Back to the Land movement, along with the Whole Earth Catalog. Maybe some of you remember that. The Nearings offered practical instructions on building and gardening. Their book was adopted by thousands of urban refugees fleeing of disaffected hippies, myself included perhaps, seeking a freer, more simple and quiet life in the countryside. On my farm for a number of years, not very successfully. And these sentiments about living a simpler and more earth-centered life are still alive and well among many people. However, the transition from city to country is an obstacle that few are able to achieve for a variety of reasons that I won't go into. And when folks say they want a simpler life, I just have to laugh. Living off-grid and being self-reliant requires many skills and talents and has many more challenges than perhaps living in the city. I was working in the garden the other day and I heard it raining, but the sky was bright blue. I stopped working and listened and realized it was as they fell to earth. It is these small moments in which I am filled with wonder at the world around me. I've never had a bad day in the garden. I've been trying to find my way back to the garden for many years. I've always had a garden wherever I lived. For me, the garden is symbolic of a way of life that is more earth-centered, basic, and holistic. A garden can be our closest connection with nature, a creative outlet, good exercise, and a grocery store for healthy food. Perhaps if you don't have your home, a basket of healthy produce. Fall is a special time of the year for both Gypsy and myself. It's the time of leaves falling and gathering. Equipped with my hydro-powered leaf blower, I blow leaves along a mile or more of dirt roads leading into the farm. I gather over 10 tons of leaves to keep the critters happy. When folks ask me what to do when they have voles in their gardens, I always say, hire them and grow a little extra for them. Gypsy, on the other hand, sees a special mission. Leaves, having left the security of father, son, and let go, have regrets and are unsure about settling down to the comfort of Mother Earth for the winter. You can see these leaves rising up and down again. Waiting until just the right moment, Gypsy leaps into the air, captures the leaf in her two paws, and brings it down to the ground and holds it with one paw until it stops shaking. Then releases it to the comfort and warmth of Mother Earth. Like me, some of you may have some unsettled feelings when the seasons change. I know I do. Let's visit our most recent conversations. If you aren't familiar with Gypsy, she is the feline cat who has taken up with me, or more accurately, taken me on, much like the gorilla in My Ishmael by Daniel Quinn, who took on a young girl as a student. Gypsy is often my mentor and advisor in this very upside-down world. And I think we have a photo of her on the screen. If you can't see it, she's posing for an advertisement for Dragon Naturally Speaking, which is a voice recognition program. And if you can see on there, it says for Cats 2.0. So she's able to communicate with the computer or with you. I've asked Mary to help with this reading, and she'll do Gypsy's part. Mary, you want to join me? Oh, and you have on your cat ears.
I do indeed.
And your fur.
My fur, yes, absolutely.
This is from fall 2021, our most recent conversation together. I see you've been hard at work saving leaves again.
Yes, absolutely. I am only helping them in their time of need. I feel this is my responsibility to help them on their journey from Father, Son, to the warmth and comfort of Mother Earth. Some are undecided whether to remain aloft in the bright sun or to return to the earth with the mother.
Yes, I know we've had this discussion before, and I apologize if it sounds like I'm making light of it. I know this is important work you do, and you see this as your mission. I see that you come in exhausted each day after you're leaping.
Indeed. Thank you for acknowledging my efforts. It gets a little harder each year as I get older. I don't have any children to take care of this task.
Yes, and there's only so much each of us can do each day and in our lives.
I see you've been busy as well, rounding up leaves for the garden. The noise of the leaf machine is rather grating on my nerves, and I assume for all the life in the woods. Is it totally necessary? Wouldn't a rake suffice and be much quieter?
Well, I'm using the latest technology to gather leaves. My blower is powered by clean hydropower stored in batteries. I'm harvesting the energy of water flowing to power the blower. Yes, a rake would be an alternative. However, I wouldn't have the energy to do all that raking by myself.
I absolutely understand. Doesn't the noise bother you as well? It makes my fur stand on end.
I wear earplugs to cut down on the noise.
I'm not sure they make earplugs for cats. And what about all the other creatures that live in the woods?
Well, I understand this is creating some disturbance, and I assure you that it's only temporary, and all will return to normal when all the leaves have fallen and been rounded up.
Oh, thank goodness this is only once a year. I know how important the leaves are in your garden, and I don't mean to take offense when you're only trying to do good. Maybe I can find a nice quiet place to go to, and you can run that thing.
Thank you for accommodating my needs and being understanding. I will try my best to limit how much I use it. Blessed be.
Blessed be. I'm going to that quiet spot.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. There may always be a conflict between our technology and nature. Do we think that there will always be a technological fix for the fix that we've gotten ourselves into? What this conversation may suggest is that it's important how we invest our energy and our time. Recently, I found this book in Friends of the Library. It's called The Transition Handbook, and that's where the opening words came from. And on the front copy, it says UUF copy. So at one time we had, I think, a discussion group going on here. And I think Don Erickson probably remembers better than I do about that. I paid $1.25 for it. Hopkins visited the Hunza in the 1990s. On the way to visit them, he read a quote that said, "If on earth there is a garden of bliss, it is this. It is this. It is this." Dazzling, Rob says, here was a society which lived within its limits and had evolved a dazzlingly sophisticated yet simple way of doing things. All the waste, including human waste, was carefully composted and returned to the land. Dazzlingly sophisticated yet simple way of doing. How do these two things go together? Or is it the way we do things that is really much more complex and complicated? Just consider the way we handle human waste by flushing it down the commode. It's an elaborate system that often doesn't work, is energy intensive, and lastly, wasteful. We haven't yet come to terms with our own bodily functions in a practical, ecological, and sustainable way. So how can we think we can do the same in many other aspects of our lives? And Rob continues, I do not intend to romanticize or idealize it, but there was something I caught a glimpse of when I was in Hunza that resonated with a deep genetic memory somewhere within me. However, even back then in the 1990s, Hopkins saw changes coming. Empty fertilizer bags, sacks, bags of cement, sugary foods, and fizzy drinks. Even the Hunzas were falling into the traps of our modern, not so civilized society. I've lost my place. Civilized world. The concern back then was peak oil, which has somehow been lost in our collective consciousness as we find new discoveries of petroleum and new technologies to extract even the last drop hidden in the earth. Carbon that only feeds our addictions, yet science, if we believe and adhere to it, tells us that these carbon resources that are buried deep in the ground are there for a reason. The earth and all life requires that they stay where they are. And peak oil isn't about leaving oil in the ground, but rather using it. Good to the last drop. I recently read a book called Back from the Land, a story of modern pioneers who, after struggling for years and years trying to rediscover the self-sustaining ways of the life of our pioneering ancestors, they gave up and went back to living in modern society. Their bodies and minds and perhaps souls just couldn't handle the stress of that way of life. It was a bit of a wake-up call, as I've also tried to live that life, a life of back to basics. I have a couple of copies of that book somewhere on my shelves, Back to Basics. Transition Town infected a lot of folks with hope for a different tomorrow, one that emphasized rebuilding local agriculture and food production, localizing energy production, rethinking healthcare, rediscovering local building materials in the context of zero energy building, rethinking how we manage waste, and ushering in a new renaissance, economic, cultural, and spiritual. I think we are slowly headed in that direction, but will we be in time to save the world as we know it? The pandemic has only further contributed to our dependence on fossil fuels. Our demand for consumer goods made in China, shipped in huge container ships that ply across the ocean, spewing pollution from dirty fuels not limited by environmental regulations, and then delivered to our door by UPS or FedEx. This may represent just the opposite of what transition folks had hoped for. And yes, we are responsible for those emissions coming from other countries when we buy their products. And if you listen to the news, our only concern seems to be not how to cut down on our addiction to consumer goods, but how to manage all those ships coming into port. And as the doomsday clock inches forward toward midnight, there is a lot to be fearful of. We are entering the sixth mass extinction, referred to as the Anthropocene. Human population growth and increasing per capita consumption are the primary drivers for this decline in species, which is estimated to be 100 to 1,000 times the normal background extinction rate. We may not even know when species become extinct because we haven't discovered them yet. We now have become a super predator in a shrinking world. And climate catastrophe or chaos is only one of the threats looming over us. Add to that the proliferation of nuclear weapons, pandemics, mass migrations, and economic collapse. If one isn't fearful or depressed, then what is our problem? That impending feeling that things are out of control, that we are beyond the tipping point, and worst of all, that we have had our hand in making our undoing and that of the earth, and stood by and did nothing, may only fuel our anxiety and despair. It would be easy to be consumed by our own grief and despair, or we could just give up and become complacent and not care. So when I had these feelings, I turned to Gypsy to express some of my grief over climate chaos and to get some of her wisdom. So we'll share that with you now. As Gypsy says, cats have always been mentors to humans. We naturally want the best for humans as they play such a significant role in the world. We want to teach them how they can live rich and rewarding lives without destroying the only home they have.
My point was that even if species leave the planet Earth, the potential for them to arise again or in any form again is always present.
Do you mean there is a memory for these forms?
Yes, they're part of the pattern of the universe. Life is a result of the inherent patterns or structures of life itself. Life wills itself to be whenever the conditions are right.
And now humans are making it difficult or impossible for life to exist here on this planet. A nuclear war could wipe out most of the life as we know it.
And that would be tragic because it would be a loss of so much opportunity for life to grow, blossom, and exist.
It makes me so sad to think about this. I just want to cry. Humans seem to be a blight on this planet, and all we do is create destruction. It seems humans are an evil curse. Even when we try to live lightly on the earth, we still impact the earth in negative ways. And growing populations are taking over the habitat of other species. There seems to be very little limit on human populations, unlike most other species that are kept in check.
Yes, it is possible that humans may cause mass extinction. Some life may survive and start again. However, all the patterns inherent in life still exist. The universe is very patient, and there is no sense of urgency because time is meaningless.
Well, I'm still a little confused about that, but go on.
Consider the fact that a large asteroid could hit the Earth and destroy all or most of life here. Who would we blame then? This is where understanding the past, present, and future is important. If everything exists right now or will exist in the future, then time is meaningless.
Perhaps man is here to stop that asteroid from hitting the Earth. Then we could use our weapons for a good purpose, to divert the asteroid away from hitting the Earth. Maybe life has a reason for humankind's existence.
It's not quite that simple, but now I think you understand more about the concept of time. History is really no more than looking at how things got to where we are now. The future is shaped by how we act in the present. In other words, our current actions create what the future will be. Simply put, the future is now.
Do you mean that life as we know it, or how it will be, has always existed?
Yes, and intelligence or design is part of that. What I am working on when I meditate is helping to channel that intelligence in a positive way. You humans refer to this as love, but it's also just part of the makeup of all matter. Matter wants to be created and organized in all the myriad examples that you find on Earth.
Thank you, Mary. Rather than being consumed or held hostage by our grief, guilt, or anger, we can free ourselves to begin envisioning a different way of life. beginning with ourselves and the way we view not only ourselves, but the world around us. Only we can change our minds. There is reason to hope based in part on our belief and faith in life, but faith also means action. And action is the result of our intentions and effort to bend the light of truth toward a meaningful life now and for the future. And it is often the few who are responsible for shaping that reality. They are the truth-sayers, such as Martin Luther King, who warned us of the three evils of racism, poverty, and war. Today, we might include Al Gore, Nobel Prize laureate, author of An Inconvenient Truth. Yet his own credibility may be somewhat tarnished by his own personal financial success and the fact that he is part of the old guard. So today we may need to turn toward a younger generation of activists, dreamers, and leaders, such as Greta Thunberg and the Sunshine Crowd. And we have a picture there of Greta in front of the Swedish parliament. Greta refused to go to school, instead sitting outside the Swedish parliament, protesting the inaction of Sweden's leaders. She questioned why she should go to school when she may not have a future to live in. Let's hear what Greta has to say, first from COP25 and then 26. This is from Greta speaking at COP25 in 2019.
It's an emergency. You change your behavior, and without that sense of urgency, how can we understand we are facing a real crisis? And if the people are not fully aware of what is going on, then they will not put pressure on people in power to act, and without pressure on leaders, they can get away without doing anything, and around and around and around.
Says Greta, our house is on fire, and our inaction is just fueling the flames. The past decade was the hottest on record, and people around the world are suffering and dying. Here are her words at COP26.
It's not a secret that COP26 is a failure.
To stay below the target set in the Paris Agreement and thereby minimizing the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control, we need immediate, drastic annual emission cuts unlike anything the world has ever seen. And as we don't have the technological solutions that alone will do anything to come close to that, that means we will have to fundamentally change our society. And this is the uncomfortable result of our leaders' repeated failure to address the crisis.
The leaders are not doing nothing. They are actively creating loopholes and shaping frameworks to benefit themselves and to continue profiting from these destructive systems. This is an active choice by the leaders to continue to let the exploitation of people and nature and the destruction of present and future living conditions to take place. Phew. This is probably not what you want to hear from a Sunday service. My apologies if this makes you uncomfortable, but I hope you'll stick around with me, with Paul here. Let's take a break and hear Joni's Woodstock. We have some slides from his garden if the technology will cooperate.
Came upon a child of God. He was walking along the road. are stardust. We are golden, and we got to get ourselves back to the Then can I walk beside you? I have come here to lose the smog, and I feel to be a cog in something turning. Well, maybe it is just the time of year, or maybe it's the time of man. I don't know who I am, but you know life is for learning. We are stardust, we are golden, and we got to get ourselves back to the By the time we got to Woodstock, we were 500,000 strong, and everywhere there was song and celebration. And I dreamed I saw the bombers riding shotgun in the sky, and they were turning in to butterflies above our nation. We are stardust, billion-year-old carbon. We are golden, caught in the devil's bargain, and we got to get ourselves back to the
Joni Mitchell never attended Woodstock. She and Crosby, Stills, and Nash were scheduled to perform, but the logistics of getting them in and out of the festival proved hopeless, and they had other commitments after the festival. Joni watched it on TV and then wrote one of her most famous songs, Woodstock. Were any of you there? I wasn't. Back to the garden. Fall is a time of renewal, when the energy stored in leaves returns to the earth to fertilize it. The captured carbon, through a process we call photosynthesis, gently falls to the earth and creates the organic soils of the forest. It's a process that has been going on for millions of years on Earth. Carbon is removed from our air and stored in the earth and oceans. It's only since man came along that this process has been disrupted and reversed, and we've been digging up the stored carbon and burning it in our power plants. What we know now is if we are to survive, along with the rest of the passengers on the earth, we need to leave the stored carbon in the ground. There's a concept called Gaia that says the earth is really a superorganism and that it functions as an entity to preserve and regulate the planet. The only wrinkle in this idea is that humans have arrived and we are overly successful to the point that we risk not only our own future, but that of the planet as well. It could also be said that Gaia prepared the way. And this makes me think about our seventh principle in UU, respect for the interdependent web of life that we are part of. We may want to rethink this principle. It suggests that we are somehow a separate part of the web of life. A more holistic view would be that we are the web of life and all the parts in it. And any loss of species is a loss of ourselves. I have a couple books that I admit I haven't read, but I think they would be great to be part of a UU program. One is called Reconnecting with Nature, and it's a series of exercises that can be done in a setting such as a church. The other book is called Eco-Psychology, Restoring the Earth and Healing the Mind. If we could choose one or both of these books to study, it might help us get back on the path to helping ourselves and the world around us. We share the genetics of all life, which evolved from the first single-celled organism. We are, in fact, a multi-organism with more foreign inhabitants than our own cells, which may just be precursors to our own evolution. Research on primates indicates that we are more alike than different. When Jane Goodall discovered that chimps make and use tools, it meant that we had to redefine what it means to be human, or accept that they are also human. And we are just learning about connections in the natural world. From a human standpoint, we have learned how to connect with each other via the World Wide Web. Now, through the work of forester ecologists such as Peter Wollenben in the hidden life of trees, we are learning that even trees communicate with each other in a variety of ways, which includes a fungal network that acts much like the World Wide Web. This network can transmit nutrients, water, and information. But not only do trees communicate with each other, they support each other by exchanging energy and nutrients. And even different species of trees do this, and it has been proven using radioactive isotopes with mass spectrometers and scintillation counters, whatever they may be, which shows an exchange of carbon taking place. So our understanding of the world is just in its infancy. And consequently, our understanding of ourselves and our place in the world is limited as well. Trying to tie all this together, let's go back to COP26. If our governments and leaders aren't going to make the changes needed to help us survive, then who will? I believe it's up to us to make those fundamental changes that Gypsy suggests that may help save our world. This means not only changing our behaviors, but also changing our view of the world and who we are. Gypsy's campaign was about fundamental change. Let's take a look at what that might mean. And this is close to the end of the talk, I'll let you know. Mary?
Humans tend to focus on what has happened in the past and fear what may take place. But understanding that we only have the present moment can free one to live more fully, and one's actions can have more of an influence on what may be.
Are you suggesting there is a future?
Living in the moment opens up the potential for what will be. It is like how light can bend around an object in space. The future is now in the actions that we live today.
So Gypsy is suggesting that our actions today can have an effect on what will come to be, or as she says, help create the potential for what will be. As a species, we like to plan and think somehow that we have a way of controlling the future. And the other side of the coin is that we like to put things off to a later date instead of living and acting in the present. This gives us an excuse for not to act in the present. As the saying goes, why put off today what you can put off tomorrow? If we were truly living for today, there wouldn't be much need to plan for a future. And we wouldn't be able to use this as an excuse for not doing what we need to do today. I think this is Greta Thunberg's frustration, that we aren't doing what we need to be doing now. And we have plenty of excuses and why, and time is just one of those excuses. And Gypsy tells us there is no such thing. Every day we hesitate is the day we lose. She is telling us that it is our analytical thinking that is what gets us in real trouble. In matters of the heart, Gypsy clarifies the difference of acting in our heads rather than acting through our hearts. Now, Unitarians may have difficulties with this concept as we tend to be stuck in our heads. If all of this leaves you confused, my apologies as a result of not living in the present and is tied close to our concept of time, but 2021. I can't believe it's summertime and I'm already picking green beans. It just seems like yesterday that I started the spring garden and put those seeds in the ground.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Well, that's a strange statement from a cat who doesn't believe in time, and that the only time we have is right now in this very moment.
Yes, I was just referring to your perception of time has gone by quickly. There's a sense of timelessness when we are fully engaged in what we're doing in the moment. In this state, time doesn't exist, and we just are.
I'm afraid I'm having trouble following all that, but I appreciate your wisdom.
Humans tend to sense time because of the change of seasons, or in the daily rhythm of night and day. These are only astrological events that are taking place. Humans translate these events into a sense that they refer to as time. However, no time has actually elapsed.
Well, I'm afraid we'll just have to take your word for it. I do understand that if we only have this very special moment in what we call the present, then really the past or future don't exist. And if they don't exist, then neither does time.
Exactly. I have one suggestion for you, Paul.
Yes.
You mentioned Unitarians being stuck in their heads. And for mothers, work from the heart. So we could encourage our universalist sense of compassion.
I agree. What Gypsy may be saying is that time is a human invention and an illusion, and confuses our understanding of the importance of acting in the present. As she says, the future is now, and we open up the potential for good things to happen when we act in the present. If we focus on the future, we tend to put things off until later, missing out on what could happen now. Is it time we put our watches away? What would it be like to spend one day without knowing what time it was? I'd like to go on with this train of thought, however, Mary is hinting to me that we are out of time. Thank you for going on this journey with me.
Thank you so much, Paul and Gypsy. We appreciate so much your message. Our closing words: may we continue on our way waiting for someone else to be the change that needs to happen to save our planet and ultimately us. And the future, if there is one, may be more than inconvenient, as it already is for many of the world's people. As Greta Thunberg tells us, our house is on fire. We won't have to wait. We can start the change right now, we, the people. Her final words are, act as you believe you love your children above all else. Extinguishing our chalice words, Reverend Amy Zucker Morgenstern. When we take fire from our chalice, it does not become less, it becomes more. And so we extinguish our chalice, but we take its light and warmth with us, multiplying their power by all of our lives and sharing it with the world. When we are together, we circle our round sanctuary and join hands in our closing circle and covenant. For now, we will join together in spirit as we recite our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and community is its goal. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So may it be.